You know, I had a whole entire script written and ready to go for part 2. It's just a big script with parts 1 and 2 in one document along with all the line distributions, which yes, have taken up a lot of time editing, especially because they keep crashing my software, so please do check those out on my second channel, thank you. So I could have just recorded that and given you guys a rushed maybe 15-minute video on part 2, but I didn't want to do that. I think we all deserve better than that. I had a lot of time to think over December, particularly because I was sick for more than half the month, which was super fun. Spent January split between recovering from that and trying to survive my job, so this whole YouTube thing was kind of on the back burner. But we're back now. Originally, the script was stuffed with numbers and constant repeats, so we're gonna try to avoid that. I, however, want to make it clear that these videos are never done with any malice. They do not result in my ideal lineup ever. If they did, my girl Cheon would still be here. They are always based on my analyses during and after the show, contemplating what fans generally enjoyed and what should be changed, and that's why I do my survey. If the survey completely disagrees with my take on something, I change course. I allow myself some veto power, but if a majority of you had said Cutie should have been eliminated before part 2, I would have done it. It would have killed me, but I would have done it. So let's keep that in mind as we go through part 2, okay? Firstly, let's go over the base structure. We're keeping most of the missions, but changing their execution. I'm also adding an episode prior to the finale that, yes, serves as a filler, but also was just needed, in my opinion at least. So what are the challenges then? Challenge 1, the Black Maid test. The original had the girls split into 3 teams of 4 by judges' decision. They would compete in remixes of 3 songs associated with either YG or Wake One, and each remix was supposed to showcase the Black Label's signature sound. But we ended up with a remix of Livy and Rose that lacked any power, lovesick girls with no bittersweet angst and sentimentality, and the version of I'm the Best for 2024 where the only noticeable difference was the sound of the vocals. They were also all shortened. You can afford another minute and a half, Mnet. How are we fixing this? I think it would make more sense if we take 3 songs that were explicitly not made by the Black Label's producers and had them remixed into something the final group might release. I had you guys place the girls into the songs, but I specified the vibe of each because I was always intending on changing these songs. After cycling through many options, particularly Kara songs to replace I'm the Best, the 3 I landed on are Red Velvet's Psycho, replacing Livy and Rose. You got me feeling like a psycho, psycho. Idol's Fate, replacing Lovesick Girls. And Mamamoo's Hip, replacing I'm the Best. As for who is in which, in Psycho we have Fuko, Sebi, Gyuri, and Sarang. I do think we would see some drama within the team when it comes to the center and main vocal, with Gyuri possibly volunteering for both and losing both, ending up in part 4, which isn't the main rapper for this team. There is a rap part, but it's not the main part. On the other hand, I think the choice of the center comes down to Fuko's decision, as I think she would have her eyes solely on the main vocal, which she would receive. I do see Sarang and Sebi also vying for the center, with Sebi's expressions beating out Sarang's stability, but Sarang takes the main dancer position anyways. I don't think the show would particularly dwell on this team, especially since all of the members have been presented as fairly team-oriented and willing to go with the majority. Fate then consists of Jungin, Jimin, Yui, and Coco. I would expect them to do poorly at the interim for the same reason as Panorama on the actual show, being the song's key is a bit too high for any of them to hit the notes comfortably. This team also has pretty self-explanatory positions. The only conflict I could see arising would be internal from Jungin, as she was never really that into being a default main vocal, and I think she consistently shined more in center roles because she got to be a vocalist and a dancer. But with the team she's in, there's really no other choice for main vocal. Jimin's the center, Yui's the main rapper, and Coco's the main dancer. I would expect the Black Label to insert a random dance break as well as a mic stand choreo similar to, but also very different from Fake It. Finally, Hip has Jiyoon, Sujung, Juwon, and Yuju, basically just the original I'm the Best team, but with Yuju instead of Mai. Since this time the center and main vocal are labeled correctly, I do think Sujung and Jiyoon would lean more towards their expected roles. However, because the survey gave Sujung more main dancer votes and Juwon more center votes, I decided they would both go out for the center, and Sujung got pushed into main dancer by expectation, perhaps a source of some conflicts. Yuju would assume her natural role as the main rapper, while Jiyoon gets the main vocal. Now we move on to the performances. I'll try to break down how I see each performance going in my head. You can use the line distribution videos for reference. I would have Psycho go first because I feel like it really needs that impactful intro moment and the energy of the other two doesn't feed into it nicely. Fuko starts off the song and Sarang joins her ad-libs in the intro while Gyuri does the first Psycho and Sebi starts off the song proper. As the center, Sebi gets most of the high impact parts. She gets the first verse, Irene's rap verse, the first part of the bridge, as well as the last word of the song. I think she would do fairly well in most sections. The small rap part lets her showcase more versatility, and I think they would stick to the classics when it comes to having her center the chorus, as it's mostly all members aside from ad-libs. This means her strong stage presence doesn't get a lot of competition despite only having 4 people on stage. Where I think we would see some faltering is at the bridge, which is a very soft vocal part after a lot of dancing, and Sibi's breath regulation just isn't there yet. This would create some conflict in the background, where the mentors debate giving that part to Fuko or Gyuri, but they ultimately decide to let Sibi keep it. A high stage presence score evens out a weaker vocal score, and she finishes with an 87. However, the audience loves Sibi, and she receives an easy 197 out of 250 votes. Main vocal Fuko has a lot of ad-libs to carry, as well as needing to rely on a lot of falsetto throughout the song. I think this would really test her vocal agility, which was pretty accurately shown in the show, so I think she would maybe stumble in the interim but pull it off on stage. Due to this, she also gets center moments at some key points in the performance, such as the first pre-chorus. I think this would come out to an 86 total performance score, but again, the audience loves Fuko and they give her 191 votes. As the main dancer, Sarang's vocal score doesn't count as high, but she does still get a lot of key vocal moments, such as the second part of the bridge. Mostly sharing her parts with Solgi, most of Sarang's lines aren't incredibly high-pitched, but they do test a lot of vocal agility, especially the line right after the rap. I think this is something she might struggle to balance with her main dancer role, and I would wager there would be a lot of comparisons with Sebi during the interim. She would get the hard worker edit in this team and probably spend a lot of time practicing on her own after the others go to bed. Ultimately, I think this would result in an 86 performance score, and since the audience really likes Sarang, a 174 from them. Finally, Gyuri is essentially the filler in this team. She does get a lot of good parts like the opening Psycho, but I would say her parts mostly serve as support for the other members. She gets the second rap part, a fair amount of ad-libs, and good showcases of vocal versatility. She just doesn't really get the high impact parts. Her biggest strength on this stage is her stability, and I don't think there would be any faltering here. I do think she would get some criticism for her performance not matching the emotions of the song in the interim, but she would be able to fix it for the most part before the live stage. All this leaves us with an 88 total score, highest in the team, and a close score to Sarang's at 173 votes from the audience. Then we have Fate, which I feel will really test the girls' acting and emoting skills. I would say from this team, Coco and Yui are the best when it comes to emoting, so I would expect them to do the best in that regard. But as non-fluent foreigners, I think the pronunciation will be the thing tripping them up. I would expect this team to have the worst interim because of that, but I also think Mnet will play it up in the editing. Because this is a team of strong fan favorites, that's going to create a negative response among viewers. What's the saying? Any attention is good attention. Jimin takes on the center, but I think she'll still be very unsure. Coming off of finishing in ground to placing first in the save vote is a lot of pressure, and I think that would show in the interim. I also think the mentors would scold her for that, which gives her the hard worker added for this team. I would see her putting in a lot of work, especially for the first verse and outro. I think it would pay off on stage, possibly with even better results than Livy and Rose on the show, but I don't think her score would be better. I would estimate a total score of 84, mostly dragged down by the high vocal range, but pulled back up by 207 audience votes. I think we can all acknowledge that the 95 for Livy and Rose was an overestimation. Right? Maybe I just have higher standards. Onto the main vocal, Jungin has a heavy load to bear. As the obvious vocal standout of this team, a lot of the difficult vocal moments fall on her. I don't think she would end up carrying the performance, but this is a source of stress that I could see negatively affecting her in the interim. I do think after a suggestion of pitching the song down, we would see remarkable improvement from the whole team, which should relieve that stress and ensure a smooth final performance. I think we would see an overall improvement in score, but I think she would still struggle with the acting aspects of the performance, as that was never really her strong suit. For an overall score of 85, the biggest improvement is in vocals, which is very good for the main vocal position. However, the domestic audience were never huge fans, and that's reflected in her 145 audience votes. We have Coco as our main dancer. Like I mentioned, I think they would add in a dance break and perhaps even add in more choreo with mics throughout, so she'll definitely have something to do. She gets a very small vocal part, but I would expect her to pull it off well enough. As for the dance, there's really no argument that she's in the top 2 dancers on the show and consistently delivered. Her stage presence saw remarkable improvement in part 2, and I think the live crowd definitely encourages her more than anything else. I think her performance score would average out to a 90, the highest overall, while the audience would throw their support behind her for 196 votes. Lastly, we have Yui. Yui's in kind of a rough situation, seeing as she takes over my spot in the final 12. Because of that, it is a bit harder to evaluate her placement in part 2, but based on her performances on the show, I think Yui would definitely be someone who gets good performance scores and low audience votes. Her biggest problem was always her breath regulation, and I think the break would give her a chance to improve that. However, I don't think she would be a prominent character in the team edit. All this leads to an 84 on the lower end, but still a good score, and 165 audience votes. The last performance of the night starts with Ju-won as the center of Hip. Again, I don't think she would be prominent in the background edit for the team. Most likely she wouldn't even really get a storyline, and her biggest screen time would be in comparison to Soojeong. But I do think she would bring an overall satisfying performance with an 85-4 performance. However, she does lose out on the audience. She was never extremely popular with viewers as a one pick, and even a good performance would leave her with just 131 votes. The main vocal is again Jiyoon this time around. Sharing parts with Solar does allow her to showcase a lot of vocal versatility that she hasn't been able to in previous missions. Now, will her background be as impactful as when she stood up for and helped Mai? I doubt it, but I do think we would get to see more of her developing relationships with the other contestants, both within her team and outside of it. After some mixing and matching around with the part 1 numbers, Jiyoon ranks in 4th place overall at the start of part 2 and rooms with Fuko and Yuju, who I am putting down as the core relationships we see develop, especially Fuko. All this culminates into a performance score of 86 and an audience vote of 193 votes. Double whammy of being a fan favorite and having a good relationship with another fan favorite. Soojeong as the team's main dancer obviously delivers. I do think the song is a little bit out of her depth as a vocalist, but she would do well enough vocally. Now, perhaps a controversial take, if Mnet wants to evil edit you, they will. And I think Soojeong was the one contestant who gave them fodder for that. Her comments about Mai during this point in the show don't exist in a vacuum. You can still be her fan, you can still think this doesn't define her, but I will put forth the argument that if she felt comfortable enough to say that on camera once, then this is clearly something she does think and thinks other people agree with her on. Would this be the same situation? No. Her team is generally made up of really competent people who don't lack in vocal skill, so it won't be the same, but I do think there's a possibility she would lash out against Ju-won and or Jiyoon because they're the reason she's forced into the main dancer again. Please, 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 do not think this is me saying Soojeong is a bad person. This is a high-stress situation, there's a lot on the line, and her previous Arello show experience encouraged that behavior. That's why I think she will give Mnet something to evil edit her with. That aside, performance score of 86 puts up a good fight against a 153 audience vote. Finally, Yuju. The main rapper role here is a bit of a double-edged sword for her. While yes, Moonbyul is the rapper, so they share parts here, she's also the main dancer of the group, so she doesn't fully escape from what trapped her in the first go-around. However, sharing a room with Fuko and Jiyoon would, in my opinion, likely lead to the three of them helping each other with their shortcomings. All that combined sees her taking home an 84 for her performance and 176 votes from the audience, a slight boost from a positive relationship and edit with fan favorites, slightly reduced due to probably not being the focus of that section and due to being in a performance with one of them. Now, how do we convert these? I asked you guys in the survey and the consensus landed on proportional by team. So how does that work? Simple, I hope. Let's just go through the teams. Starting with Psycho, Sebi has the highest score of 197 audience votes, which would be 100 points. Following her is Fuko with 191 votes, which is equal to 96.9% of Sebi's votes. Converting that into points, Fuko receives 97 points. Due to the 1 point difference, both Sarang and Gyuri receive 88 converted points. Repeat that through Hip. Jiyoon receives 100 converted points, Yuju gets 91, Soojeong 79, and Ji1 68. Finally, for Fate, Jimin gets 100, Coco 95, Yui 80, and Jungin 70. The final scores for this mission are as follows. First, Sebi 187 points, second, Jiyoon 186 points, third, Coco 185 points, fourth, Jimin 184 points, fifth, Fuko 183 points, sixth, Gyuri 176 points, seventh, Yuju 175 points, eighth, Sarang 174 points, ninth, Soojeong 165 points, 10th, Yui 164 points, 11th, Jungin 155 points, and 12th, Ju-won 153 points. Before anybody tries to put my head on a stake, please do remember these points are awarded with consideration of how the score is actually settled on the show. Again, if you want to understand the factors I think go into this, please check out the line distributions as well. Okay, are we all calm? We're all collected? Nobody wants to crucify me? Let's move on to the second mission of part 2. This is what I have renamed into the skill test, originally main position test. Here the girls will be split into teams based on their primary skill. A few things to note. Firstly, as the survey split the girls pretty evenly with 3 in vocals, 3 in all-rounder, 2 in rap, and 4 in dance, I decided that each team would have 3 members. Mai was originally placed into the dance team, but I sincerely doubt Yui would choose dance over rap. Despite the fact that the one skill test she got on the show was dance, that was because there was no rap team. Similarly, we also haven't seen Coco perform as a rapper since the first 3 missions of the show, but this time we're making it clear that this is about determining who out of the candidates can earn a main position. They are also joined by Yuju completing the rap trio of this version of events. I decided to stick with Spicy for them because none of the other options I considered compared, especially not after already using Pretty Savage and My Bag.
She got the sauce and it's spicy. You're looking at the most fly Asians.
As for the dancers, I do think if Yui had made it to part 2 instead of either Gyuri or Ju-won, then Coco would have been on this team, but I prefer the even split. Coco basically has the main dancer position in the group locked down by this point between her good scores and growing popularity. The question is more so if Yui and Yuju can prove they deserve the main rapper position more. Back to the point, the dance team is made up of Jimin, Sujong, and Juwon. The odd one out is quite easily Jimin because she was never really promoted as a dancer on the show, but it's very clear she is a dancer first and foremost. The people spoke and I listened, and these three will be tasked with coming up with a choreo for NMIX's Dash.
I wanna dash, I wanna dash, I wanna run it, dash, I wanna dash, I wanna run it.
This is the one unit I will accept a reduced track for, but I would be more impressed with a full song, especially since I'm tasking them with choreographing it. Should we be extra mean and say each girl should be in charge of one part completely on her own? Then we have Sebi, Sarang, and Cutie in the all-rounders. I guess it's just a canon event that the Elegant Black Maid song has 3 out of 4 members in the all-rounders unit. But this time they will have actually been somewhat established, with all of them getting significant dance parts, good vocal parts, and even rap parts. Thank you, last mission. But we're tasking them with Ives Kitsch and keeping the rap part. It has a nice variety in vocals, pretty rhythmic rather than melodic, dance-focused chorus. I think it hits most of the markers. Finally, the vocal unit consists of Jiyoon, Jungwon, and Fuko. I don't think anyone can argue with that. Most people wanted Fuko in the vocal unit from the beginning, so I think this is better. Also, Fuko is pretty invested in Jiyoon and Jungwon making up, so I think she would help bridge the gap between them. As for the song, I always knew I wanted Yuna's Stardust. I am literally obsessed with it. But some survey responses specifically wanted not a ballad, but most people agreed that having the song in Korean is preferred. So I decided to provide the non-ballad truthers with an alternative, which is also Yoonha's Event Horizon. Because I am the ballad truther, I will be rating this as if it's Stardust, but if you want to create your own branch, feel free. Now, what are we thinking in terms of storyline? Let's start with the rappers. I do want them to write their own raps, but I understand the difficulties with having non-native speakers, even non-fluent speakers, write their own raps. It immediately disadvantages Yui and Coco against Yuju, and she could just choose to not help them. So we'll stick with it just being a cover. I do like this having a bit of a performance focus, so I'll keep that as well. Like I've said, I don't really think this final group was ever meant to have a lot of rappers, but it should be made up of good performers. This is also a reunion of Baggy Jean's team from all the way back in the entrance. Coco takes the lead, and I think the editing would heavily favor her. With 3 team members, the atmosphere would be a lot more dynamic as compared to when it was just her and Yuju. I do think they would end up with similar results in the interim, so their biggest motivation is really just to earn that praise. I don't see the rap unit as being a source of a lot of drama, which means the editing will not be as heavy-handed on them. But Coco is an amazing performer, and the way her confidence on stage reached a peak during this stage in the show has me convinced that she would deliver nothing less than peak performance. All that to say, I believe Coco's performance score would pull her up to a 91 average and 258 votes out of 300. Then we move on to Yuju. Like I said, Yuju has a chance to push herself by just not helping Coco and Yui, but I don't see that happening. I think her editing would be the most favorable towards her yet, because she can actually bridge the gap as a Korean and Japanese speaker. I think we would see a very nice edit of her, perhaps not as prominent as Coco, but most audiences would leave with a favorable view of her personality. While her rap score is high, Yuju has always been a weaker performer than Coco, and I think the very direct comparison would pull her score down a bit to an 86 performance score. Unlike the actual show, I think more people in the audience would appreciate her performance now that it isn't one or the other, and she would receive 228 votes. Finally, Yui. The editors never really liked Yui, not that they edited her badly, but they just didn't edit her into a lot of episodes. I think she would benefit from being in a team with Coco, but being in the bottom 3 room does reduce her likelihood of appearing in other contestant storylines. Again, Yui's weakness has always been her breath regulation, but I think this would finally be a stage where we see her overcome that. She also gets a chance to showcase herself as a performer, which is where she endeared herself to audiences in the actual show. All that combines into a performance score of 87 and an audience score of 232. On to the dancers. Self-choreography is a must. I could see Jimin and Juwon being less confident and that translating into frustration for Sujong, especially since the mentors had incredibly high standards for her choreography. Still, I think she would end up taking the lead in choreographing and help Jimin and Juwon with their own choreographies to an extent. This might be where we get the why should I help attitude, but that really depends on A, if she was evil edited in a way she doesn't agree with in the last mission, and B, if she got a chance to see the last episode, which I am pretty sure they didn't. If I remember correctly, they were asking for audience members for this episode right before or after the last episode aired. So let's start analyzing. I think Jimin would start off lacking in confidence for this mission, but gain some in the interim. Out of the 3 of them, I think she is the best center. So if, let's say, Sujong choreographed the chorus and put herself center, I could see the mentor suggest suggesting they put Jimin in the center for that part instead. Just as an example, if she's center for high impact parts, I think that would garner praise. If she's not, then I think the mentors would suggest she should be. All this would translate into probably her best performance of the entire show so far. Without a vocal score to pull her down, her dance and stage presence score would translate into the second 90+ score of part 2 and only the 5th overall. That puts her in league with Fuko and Jiyoon in the last vocal mission, Coco in the last dance mission, and Coco again in the Black Maid mission. The audience would show up for her as well with 252 audience votes out of 300. That brings us to Soojung. I've said it before and I'll say it again, when it comes to dancing, she's always in her element. I think as with previous choreography missions, this would be a source of a lot of frustration for her. She is a really good choreographer, especially given she has no formal training for it, but the mentors always expect more from her. I would bet that before the interim, she would be more willing to help the others than after. I think it is likely we'd get a why should I help moment here, but the only contestant who could do anything about it to help is Coco, and I just don't see those paths crossing like that. Either way, her performance score averages out to an 89, but being up against a huge fan favorite, I can see her audience score not being any higher than 178 votes. Finally, we have Jiwon. Despite being a really skilled dancer, she can be a bit 50-50 on stage. Sometimes she really brings it, like the Panorama dance break. Other times she gets a bit lost in the crowd, like in I Will Always Love You or Unforgiven. I think we would see a similar situation to the original dance units here, where she does well, but she doesn't really blow anyone away. I also think Jiwon is a pretty underrated choreographer, and this would be a chance for her to show off her specialty, but I don't trust Mnet not to downplay it in favor of pushing drama narratives, targeting Soojung, and highlighting Jimin. This ends with an 85 total score and 195 votes. Soojung's loss is her gain here. That brings us to the all-rounders. In all honesty, I do think this will be a team made to prop up Sarang. Even though Sebi is in it, I am 98% certain this team was always meant to prop up Sarang. Sure, she was fairly well liked in part 1 and had a good amount of fan support, but she does struggle with standing out from the crowd, and I feel like a lot of people had difficulty placing her value for the final group. Gyuri was expendable at this point. If she makes it into the group, it's not the end of the world, but she wasn't a priority. Sebi was always a guarantee either by votes or by producer's decision. But Sarang needed the push from this mission. Speaking of which, I think this is just a strong team in general, but a bit boring. There's no divisive characters, there's no internal conflict. I think the most drama we would see in this team would be a struggle over some killing part. Maybe Gyuri decides to go out for the center to shake things up, but Sebi gets it in every scenario. Sarang might struggle with getting the smallest part in her rap section. That could be the source of some conflict in the interim. Overall, I just think this team would be the least remarkable in terms of background, which does lower the impact for their performance. I think Sebi would do well, but I also think Kitsch is a little out of her depth. I think she would do great at the chorus bits, that's really similar to her element, but I could see the verses and bridge as places where she stumbles a bit. I'm really struggling to find something to say here. I genuinely think this would be a fine performance, but not really remarkable beyond that. Sebi, I believe, would take home an 86 total and 248 audience votes. I think this would be a surprising performance from Gyuri. It's not really similar to what we've seen from her before concept-wise, except maybe Giddy, if I stretch. She's kind of the anti-Sebi when it comes to strengths in this stage. She'd probably do well in the verses, but not as strong in the chorus and bridge. We might see the lip bite faux pas here. All that to say, another 86 for her performance score and 235 votes. Finally, Sarang, like I said, I think she would be the most pushed out of the team in the background, which might result in the feeling of a higher impact on stage. I think Sarang is like the Cherry of Island 2, a chameleon able to take on any concept, any role, any sound, and always making it seem natural. I think the bridge would be her place to shine because of the emphasis put on it in the background, but the chorus would probably be stronger for her than the verses. This then culminates in an 87 performance score and 240 votes. Now the team we've all been waiting for, vocals. We all know this is going to be the main drama of the night. This might even spill into the other team's backgrounds, it's that prolific. We'll have Jungin and Jiyoon on opposing sides with Fuko caught in the middle. I think we can all agree it's pretty obvious Fuko would lean towards Jiyoon, so we might get a heavy edit of the two of them together as Jungin herself retreats. It is difficult being the odd one out among two friends, but I also think Fuko would do her best to act as a mediator and encourage Jiyoon to rip the band-aid off and work this out for the betterment of the performance. Really, the biggest change in this background is just the presence of Fuko. Do I think they would magically become besties and be the closest ever? No, I honestly think that gap between Jungin and Jiyoon still exists today. But I do think we would see improvement in terms of on-stage chemistry when Fuko is there to balance it out. Let's start with Fuko. Obviously, her role as a mediator in the background is going to be a positive edit. Even though we can clearly see how close she and Jiyoon are, she's also bonded with Jungin during the previous vocal challenge and has a better understanding of how this conflict is affecting both of them. Even though she's not a main character in this stage, she still leaves a big impact on the outcome, all while maintaining her status as one of the best at emoting on the show. If we do go with Stardust, I think her obligatory lyrics analysis would serve to bridge the gap between all three of them and improve their stage chemistry. She lands in the whirlwind of good edit, good vocals, good stage presence, and takes home a 90 for performance and 250 votes. When it comes to Jungin, a lot of people seem to think I have some sort of vendetta against her because I don't give her the highest vocal scores. That's not true. I like Jungin. I am happy she debuted. I am very happy she got first place in the finale, but the truth of the matter is that she isn't fully developed as a vocalist. Sure, she can hit high notes, but does she do it in a healthy way? Not very often, because her technique isn't as good as it can be. That's why her vocal scores range from 83 to 88, which are in no way low scores. When her score is on the lower end, it's usually because I think the song either doesn't play to her strengths or highlights too many weak points. Unfortunately, she consistently gets placed in a vocal position when she never really wanted that to begin with. Look back to the first few episodes. She gives herself the center in Final Love Song, gets almost strong-armed into becoming the main vocal. She wants to do Whistle, gets strong-armed into Panorama because she's the only person in Island who can pull it off. Again, she gets pushed into the main vocal unit without any of her own input. When she gets a chance to actually choose her own part, she chooses part 5 in I Will Always Love You, a vocally demanding but not focused part. The Jungin main vocal narrative is not her own, which is why I think a 3-person unit will allow her to shine a lot more than 2-person. When she doesn't have to focus on a choreo, she can pull off some stellar vocal moments. Still some throatiness issues, still some issues with pulling up too much weight, but when she can share the burden, I think those issues weigh less. That doesn't change the fact that she's not very good at emotional interpretation, which is what pulls down her overall performance. Both Stardust and Event Horizon weigh heavy on the emotions of the performer, and that makes them, again, songs that highlight her weak points. I feel like I've over-explained myself enough by now, so hopefully nobody willfully misinterprets my words here. She finishes with an 86 performance score, and I think the mended fences and lack of an ultimatum will pull her audience score into the 200s for 231 points. Finally, Jiyoon. Vocals are where Jiyoon shines. Emotional songs suit her particularly well. It is near impossible for her to have a bad performance when she's only being judged on her vocals. I think being in a team with Fuka would also greatly improve her stage chemistry, which contributes to her stage presence. Does she still have room to improve? Absolutely, but there's not really a difficult high note for her to, pardon the pun, reach for the stars for this time. I think this unit would see a focus on harmony, seeing as they can do 3 parts. That's going to be what gets them in the interim. That's going to be the narrative trigger for Jiyoon to put her grievances aside. I'm not going to speak at length, but I think her overall performance score would be a 91, only slightly better than reality, and the conflict resolution, lack of ultimatum, possibly even a positive edit with roommates Coco and Sebi would boost her audience score to 254. Where does that leave us? First, Coco 191 points, second, Jiyoon 191 points, third, Jimin 190 points, 4th, Fuka 186 points, 5th, Sebi 186 points, 6th, Sarang 184 points, 7th, Gyuri 181 points, 8th, Yui 177 points, 9th, Jungin 177 points, 10th, Yuju 174 points, 11th, Jiwon 162 points, 12th, Sujong 160 points. In cases where 2 of them have the same amount of points, the higher rank goes to the contestant with the highest vote. As an example, Sebi got 248 votes while Fuka got 250, so Fuka ranks 4th and Sebi ranks 5th. Now, unless some people want to put my head on a stake, we can move on to the next mission. The debut mission. Things are heating up. We are now moments away from the reveal of the final group, and now it's time for the first hint of what that lineup will look like. After, of course, they show us how they would reimagine debut songs past. The debut mission is a concept I quite enjoy in theory. Here we have a bunch of debut hopefuls and a bunch of debut songs, which serves as a symbolic reminder of the final goal. The original mission had a mixed bag of songs to choose from, ranging from 2nd to 4th gen with no real theme, so to speak of. I decided to update our options so that it's all 4th gen debut songs. Thus we have Idol's Latata, IZ*ONE's Levy and Rose, ITZY's Dalla Dalla, Stacy's So Bad, aespa's Black Mamba, Kepler's Wadada, IVE's 11, and Mix's OO, The Seraphim's Fearless, and New Jeans Attention. This captures pretty much the entirety of 4th gen and a good mix of concepts and genres. I decided to keep things simple for this round since there were no scores awarded and just keep the teams as is. I don't really care to decide how they end up like that, but the easiest explanation is just that Coco and Jimin got to choose the teams because they have the highest votes across the last 2 missions. But what songs to choose? Personally, I think Coco made the right decision in choosing Latata, and I'll keep that for her team, but I rearranged the lines and made it a full song cover. On the other hand, I think Levy and Rose is the best choice for Jimin's team. 4 out of 6 were part of the original Levy and Rose team, and I think if they did a remix similar to CLC's original, it would stand a fighting chance against Latata. In my head, I can hear and see Jimin's version of Sungyeon's Levy and Rose pre-chorus line. Anyways, drama happens, the Sujong edit reaches a tipping point with the whole leader struggle. The two teams both have flower imagery, so that's a conflict. I could see Levy and Rose having similar drama as with Into the New World with line distribution, but probably less severe due to the very different distribution dynamics in both songs. This is the part of the video where I fry my brain with overthinking, so please allow me to just skip to the vote. Nothing that happens in this episode will be that consequential to the final outcome because everybody knows who their one pick is by now. During the live portion, we get the reveal of the final votes after the performance, but I want to be controversial. I want to say 9 contestants get through by vote, and the producers have to choose 1 among the 3 left to pass. I would think the vote is pretty similar to the real thing on the show. Jimin first, Jungin second, Jiyoon third, Coco 4th, Sebi 5th, Fuko 6th, Sarang 7th, Yuju 8th, Cutie 9th, and the final pass is between Yui, Sujong, and Juwon. The ranks get revealed with a little more suspense, but when it comes time for the final decision, the judges need to take a moment to deliberate. I would place my bet for them choosing to pass Yui into the finale, but as the host prepares to give Juwon and Sujong their chance for one last message, we see the judges deliberating again. There's a lot of tension and drama, and they all start nodding, and then Taeyang picks up the mic. It seems like they might be planning on giving the girls one final message of encouragement as he starts praising them as really good dancers, giving them a special shout out for how well-rounded their performance in Latata was, and saying how they think the girls have a bright future ahead, which is why they have decided to pass both of them into the finale. The room erupts, everybody's cheering and happy and shocked, and the girls celebrate on stage, and Sujong and Juwon deliver speeches of thanks for giving them one last chance to prove themselves to the viewers. This comes about because right after eliminating Mai in one of their places, which is a large reason why I didn't pass Mai into part 2 to begin with, the second highest choice for this elimination was the surprise 12-member finale. So what does that mean? We're putting in an extra episode. Yup, that's right. After the debut mission and the surprise save of all 12 contestants, we will have an extra episode showing their preparations for the finale. You may be thinking that's too much time, but I have a plan. Remember all that filler that aired in the finale? Now we have a chance to make even more of that while also getting a chance to boost some of the girls' votes. And there will still be content for the audience to engage with. In this episode, we see the girls split into 2 teams again. This time it's Catch Me If You Can, Team A and Team B. These 2 teams will face off for the finale performance arrangement. The winning team gets the opening half of the song, the other the middle part, and then the mentors choose how to split everything after the bridge. So the first half of the episode is dedicated to this section, and before the ad break, they'll air only the first half of their dance practice videos. After the ad break, they do the same with I Will Always Love You, but with new team arrangements. Fans can then view the full dance practices on YouTube and vote on the Mnet Plus app for which team they preferred. At the end of the episode, they tease the finale song Strip and Fake It. I would think Catch Me If You Can Team B would win the vote because of sentimentality. In Team A, we have Jungin as the main vocal, Sarang as the main dancer, Jimin as the center, Sebi as part 4, Yui in part 5, and Juwon in part 6. On the other hand, in Team B, Cutie is the main vocal, Coco is the main dancer, Jiyoon is the center, Fuko is part 4, Yuju part 5, and Sujong part 6. Why would they win? Both because they actually showcase new roles and because the episode edit would heavily focus on this being a redemption arc for the eliminated trio. Despite having fan favorites Jimin, Jungin, and Sebi in Team A, I think B just has the stronger storyline as well as having popular contestants. For I Will Always Love You, I think it would also be Team B winning the vote, most because they are trying new things and I think the edit would be more sympathetic to them as underdogs. And a lot of the heavy hitting lines for Team A are in the second part anyways. Team A consists of main vocal Jiyoon, main dancer Coco, center Sarang, Fuko in part 4, Jimin in part 5, and Yuju in part 6. Meanwhile, Team B has main vocal Cutie, main dancer Juwon, center Yui, Sebi in part 4, Jungin in part 5, and Sujong in part 6. Moving on to the finale, we open with the Catch Me If You Can performance and the eliminated contestants joining them on stage for the final chorus. Things progress pretty normally from here. We got some behind the scenes of the preparation for that stage and the beginning of the drip/fake it arc, parts distributions, early hints of drama, you know the drill. This is then followed up with some sappy comments from the MCs and mentors about not wanting to split up the girls because seeing them work together as 12 has been so rewarding. That then leads into the intro section for Fake It. Now the main drama of Fake It is about Fuko's rap part and I think we avoid that altogether this time around. See, for me the parts distribution for Fake It has Jungin as the main vocalist, Juwon as the main dancer, Sebi as the center, Yuju as the main rapper, Sarang as the lead rapper / part 5, and Fuko as the lead vocalist / part 6. So the rap section is already split between Yuju and Sarang and the whole drama just doesn't materialize. This also means the producers don't really have anything to point to and say, see, this is why Fuko doesn't work in the final lineup. Overall, I think the Fake It team would be pretty low conflict, all things considered. I could maybe see them putting out some doubt about Sebi's lower vocal range and considering giving that part to Jungin, but ultimately deciding that Sebi's performance capabilities put her on top. We also might see the return of criticizing Yuju for her lack of confidence on the stage, but I think that would resolve itself pretty quickly. The performance goes off without a hitch, everybody's happy. As for Drip, the main conflict there had to do with Jiyoon falling behind on the choreo, and I don't see that changing. This time around we have Jiyoon as the main vocal, Coco as the main dancer, Jimin as the center, Yui as the main rapper, Lover, Soojung as vocal part 5, and Cutie as vocal part 6. During the breakdown, I do think we would see Jimin's leadership skills again as she goes to comfort and encourage Jiyoon, but I think there would also be a too little too late redemption for Soojung as she helps Jiyoon one-on-one. Again, performance goes off without a hitch, everybody's happy, now roll the happy little family clips. Right before the live voting closes, we get a special performance from the girls of a new song which I think should be like Billy's Back to Where We Belong. I also think it should feature lyrics from at least one, if not all, of the contestants. This is our obligatory Mnet Survival Show finale ballad moment that we didn't get on the actual island too. The only defined roles would be Jiyoon as the main vocal and Jimin as the center. Like I said, after the stage blackout, we pan over to the MCs who begin the countdown to the live vote closing. After another fluff VCR, maybe the letters to each other segment, we get the final performance of OT12 I Will Always Love You. This is just to fill the time while the votes are tallied. After the performance, the focus shifts to the mentors again and they try to pry out of them who they're rooting for and get nothing, because that's what happens. Maybe we can pad the runtime now as they set up the final reveal stage with the VCR of the contestants sharing their first impressions of each other and the mentors. Listen, I hate drawn-out finales as much as the next person, but sometimes we have to do what we have to do. Now, because the 6th spot in the group is producer's choice, they started with announcing 4th place. But that was super anticlimactic to me, and I think it would be stronger to start with 5th place because that raises the stakes for the producer pick. Now we know that whoever they save is probably the person who needed saving from the get-go. Before we announce for 5th place in this version of events, I want to clarify a few things again. 1. These results are based on a combination of both what happened in real life, meaning their actual votes compared to the others, as well as a consideration of how the events in real life affected that outcome as compared to the events of this timeline. 2. This is not my personal ranking. We should all know by now that my personal ranking would place Cutie and Yui considerably higher than they have been ranked so far. I try my best to approach this from a place of reduced bias, and I use the survey results to help with that. 3. I understand that basing this off of both my perception and the perception of the viewers of my channel does lead to an inherent bias. I consider that bias while making these videos. If you want proof of how much I consider that bias, look no further than my Universe Ticket video where I still had Alicia finish first despite my personal biases of not wanting anyone under the age of 16. All that to say, please do not take these rankings personally. In 5th place, and the first confirmed debut member, is someone who has proven herself throughout the show's challenges to be an irreplaceable team member. One of the highest ranked contestants overall, the 5th place goes to Coco. In 4th place, becoming the 2nd member of the final group, someone who was never lacking on or off stage. She's proven herself capable as a performer and a leader. 4th place goes to Fuko. In 3rd place, and the 3rd debut member, this contestant showed remarkable growth throughout the show. Another contestant who became one of the highest ranked, she showed off her capabilities in a main role and her maturing leadership skills. The 3rd place, both in rank and debut, goes to Yoon Ji-yoon. The top 2 is between 2 contestants who showed themselves to be well-rounded and capable of rising to the occasion for any challenge. Although their scores have differed throughout the show, both of them are very beloved by the viewers. The 1st place is between Choi Jung-eun and Bang Ji-min. 1st place showcased the same skill in both part 1 and part 2. The 1st place contestant was never sent to ground. 1st place goes to Choi Jung-eun. That means Bang Ji-min is our 2nd rank. Now, that only leaves the producer's pick for Nam Yoo-ju, Yui, Kim Gyuri, Kim Soo-jung, Jung Se-bi, Son Ji-won, and Yoo Sa-rang. The producers deliberate. The announcement is left to Taeyang. They need to choose someone who rounds off this already strong lineup. They have to choose someone who is not only a strong performer, but also a needed personality. The person they've chosen has shown herself to be well-rounded, showcasing herself as an all-rounder on more than one occasion. Whether it's rapping, vocals, or dance, she always delivers without complaint. Any team would be lucky to have her, so the person they have decided to save, and the last debut member of the team, is Yoo Sa-rang. Although it is sad to have to say goodbye to the other very talented contestants, the final group consists of Jung-eun, Jimin, Ji-yoon, Fuko, Coco, and Sarang. Why do I think things would turn out this way? Well, the my factor is no longer a consideration. She got an outpouring of support starting from the beginning of part 2 because many in the fandom didn't want her, and that translated into support from people who were maybe indifferent to her before. As part 2 progressed, the negative comments and outpouring of vote support continued to intensify and reached a tipping point with Soojung's comments. With her out of the equation, the development of who needs extra votes changes. Yui and Yoo-ju split the main rapper vote, which gives Coco even more of a boost because her fulfilling 2 main roles means there's an extra spot open for an all-rounder. Coco takes most of the main dancer votes due to A, Soojung's evil edit, and B, Jiwon's lack of impact overall in part 2. However, her strong fan support and high producer scores throughout part 2 make her less of a priority vote. If she's out of the top 5, she's the most obvious producer pick. How do things change so much that Fuko now ends up squarely in the top 5? Consider that her spot did not seem anywhere near as secure this go around. The producers didn't choose to pass her directly into part 2, which is motivation number 1. Then with only one producer saved last voting round, her fragile position at 6th place also puts pressure on fans to actually vote for her. These are the two main factors that I think would move her from the she's definitely safe mentality that poisoned her voter pool. I also think it's important to note that she showcased more versatility this go around, from after like Tahan to I Can't Stop Me in part 1, then Psycho, La Vie en Rose, and Fake It in part 2, as well as now being placed firmly in the vocal line instead of the all-rounders, effectively boosting her perceived skills as a performer. The top 3 essentially keep their place. There's not much to say about that. Their storylines don't change that much, but it would affect their place in the lineup. However, their storylines do change how other contestants are perceived. Fuko gets a boost from mediating Jungin and Jiyoon in the vocal mission. Sujung loses out from conflict with Jimin in the dance round. Speaking of which, Sarang ranked 8th in my vote breakdown, so how does that happen and why is she the producer's pick? The show originally frames her rank as largely coming from Chinese votes. While I don't think that would change, I think Sarang would just lose out on votes that get redirected to other contestants with more compelling storylines. As for why she's the producer's pick, the producers love her. She's the definition of an all-rounder. She can fulfill any role in any part they need to. She's a chameleon in the sense that she can adapt and blend into any concept. She is the spot that Coco frees up. She can be a lead dancer, lead vocal, and a lead rapper depending on who else is in the lineup. She was also not in a lot of responders' top 6 or PD pick, but in my opinion she's a very necessary part of the final group because of her skills and adaptability. But what's this? The producers are whispering between themselves. Taeyang is picking up the mic. There's a surprise announcement. The producers feel that the group isn't really complete as it is now. There's another person who they think would round off the group in both skill and personality. This is someone who is beloved by fans and who the producers really don't want to let go of just yet. The surprise 7th member of the final group is Jung Se-bi. Yes, the survey was very clear that most people were more than happy that Se-bi was a surprise addition to the team. Although Se-bi could have been eliminated and debuted very soon in another group due to her skill and popularity, it's very clear that she's an addition most people are satisfied with. She was very popular in the survey both as a top 6 and as a top 7, and I think it's very obvious that no other surprise addition would have been received as well as Se-bi. So that's our final group of 7 after all that. I bet you're wondering what their name would be in this alternate reality. See, I'm not a huge fan of Izna. I think it's a pretty weak name that invites too many comparisons to IZ*ONE and ITZY, so I decided to go looking. I think it's pretty important for the name to have an A in it, as that was an important part of the show's branding. It's kind of like if you were to have an entire show based on the concept of 9s and multiples of 3 to create a 9-person group, and then the only number in their name is 1. That would be ridiculous, right? I also enjoyed the mystical and magical vibe of their debut teaser, so I decided to look into a Wiccan glossary, and I decided on Arcana, inspired by the major and minor arcana in tarot decks. If you want to know more about this, tune into the bonus video coming soon to a channel near you. And now we can officially close this chapter of our lives, unless you want to tune into the bonus video. Feel free, but also please do. This is a lot of work, which is why it has taken so long. Keep your thoughts and opinions respectful if you want to leave a comment. But also, is anybody else feeling nervous with the Jiyoon hiatus announcement? I feel like I've been down this road before, and I don't like it when companies word health hiatuses like that.